Hey guys, Dr. C here. I am pretending that I am at the Golden Pagoda in Kyoto, Japan. And today we are going to talk about some of the theories and approaches that we are going to use this semester in order to understand mythology. All right, everybody. So I am up here in your top right corner like a creeper, and we are going to talk today about some of the theories that we're going to use. And what I've done is broken these down where I focus on the theory itself and then give you the main scholar or theorist that gave us that idea and draw from his work so that we kind of have some context for understanding these particular theories. So to get us started, we're going to start the structural approach, right? So the structural approach says that the human experience within the world is based around a series of structures. These can be social structures, as well as the physical structures of our world, our biology, our environment, interactions between those, etc. And the structuralist approach in particular, when it comes to myth, focuses on the idea that there are binary oppositions in the world. And you already understand this, right? Day, night, good, evil, hero, villain, danger, safety. We are humans that live within a world of binaries. And the structuralist approach to myth says in order to make sense of these binaries, in order to understand the structures of our experience, we create myths, and myths present that underlying logic and those underlying stories, and that's how we can understand how we can put the chaos of the world into these clean, neat binaries that make sense to us. And of course, this had to come from a French guy. So Claude Lévi-Strauss, not the dude with the jeans, but if it helps you remember the dude with the jeans, just go with the dude with the jeans, is obsessed with pairs, right? So in his theory, he argues that we are almost biologically trained to think about the world in pairs. Again, day and night, good and evil, but even left hand, left eye, right? We have two eyes, we have two lungs, we have two arms, we have two legs. We have male and female, we have old and young, we have inside, outside, dead or alive, right? So these are all binaries. And if you think about it, most of our experience is divided in these binaries, and myths, especially monomyths, bring these binaries into order. And we've all got a right hand and a left hand. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what your experience is or what your environment is. Because our biology and because the structure of the universe is built on binaries, all monomyths are built on binaries. And if all monomyths are built on the same binaries, then it doesn't matter where you are as a human being. You are going to share in those same monomyths. So why do we see the hero's journey across all sorts of different cultures? Because we all work within the same binaries. We all have two hands, right? That's what Lévi-Strauss is essentially arguing. So the next approach is a more psychosocial approach, which says it's not that there are universal structures, but rather there are universal truths, like truths with a capital T, honor and loyalty and forgiveness and innocence and corruption and fear and overcoming and triumph. These are universal truths. And so myths are just the stories of those universal truths. Since everybody interacts with those truths, everybody interacts with those myths. And so that's why we have monomyths. That's why we have similar archetypes, because we want to understand these universal truths, and myths give us those stories. So if you watched last week's presentations, you have heard of Carl Jung. He was a psychologist who said there's a collective unconscious. We all share in some universal understanding, some universal search for truth. That's why all of the religions around the world are always focused with reaching some kind of existential or enlightenment type truth, right? This collective unconscious contains all of our knowledge, and we're just trying to tap into that. And so everybody can tap into this collective unconscious. That's why we have archetypes. That's why we have monomyths, because we're all tapping into the same thing. So he argues that individuation is a process where we, the individual, understand ourselves, and then we place ourselves in this larger context of all of the other archetypes. And this allows us to connect with the other parts, the other archetypes or the other ways of understanding myth. So I might not be a hero and I might not be a jester, but I can kind of individuate and see humorous parts of myself, see daring parts of myself. And so I can relate to those archetypes. I can process them. I can understand their meaning and their function and the values that they're trying to teach me through that process of individuation. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about the phenomenological approach. And obviously, this approach is derived from the term phenomena. And what this approach says is that the world is made up of all sorts of different physical phenomena, like thunderstorms and tornadoes and hurricanes and deserts and weird and strange animals. And of course, we have all the phenomena that have to do with our body. And then we have all the social phenomena that we create, like betrayals and loyalty and group cohesion, right? And of course, we have all the rituals that we create. These are phenomena too. And the reason that we have myths is in order to explain these phenomena and to connect them all together. So the purpose of phenomena is not to tell us stories about true meanings in life, but to actually explain real life shit that happens right in front of us. It's really useful and it's really necessary because the world is really complicated and a lot of stuff happens that we just completely don't understand. And when those phenomena happen, boom, we write a myth about it. And then when other people go through the phenomena, they can understand that phenomena better because they also know the myth. And of course, this comes from a religious scholar, right? So our structuralist approach, that came from an anthropologist. Our psychological approach, that came from a psychologist. Now our phenomenological approach comes from a religious scholar because he directly tied myth to religious phenomena. So Eliade argues that the world is separated into two, there's that binary again, the sacred or holy things, and then the profane or everyday things, just the boring, run-of-the-mill stuff that isn't mystical, magical, holy, and special. And so myth creates the models to help us understand these events. The everyday events, the profane events, the boring events, that's what history is for. That's what historians record. But what about the sacred events, the holy events, the mythical, masterful phenomena? Those are recorded in myths. So if it's something boring and everyday, Eliade says, yep, that's for the historian. And if it's something wicked cool, then yep, that's for the myth maker. And so we understand myths in order to understand these sacred and holy aspects or phenomena of our lives. Okay, and finally, I want to look at the functionalist approach. And this should not surprise you. If you've taken any other social science, you've probably talked about the functionalist approach before, because this is a really simple idea. Humans create things in order to serve functions. So why do we have governments? In order to serve functions of law and order and stability. Why do we have religion? In order to serve functions related to understanding our universe and feeling consoled when sorrowful things happen, et cetera, et cetera. So why do we have myth? What function does it serve in societies? And myths serve a ton of different functions. I'm actually going to give you an entire lecture on that in one of the separate lectures, so make sure you click on that one. But broadly, the purpose of myths, the functions that they serve in society, are to provide political and social order, even religious order, to answer really deep philosophical questions like what happens when we die? How did the universe get created? What does it mean to be heroic? Like things like that. It also teaches people their social role and values. So like a bunch of myths about powerful mothers help women to understand this is what we value in motherhood and this is what we think strong women should look like, etc. And then myths also are an opportunity to be creative, right? Storytelling is an opportunity to share symbols and ideas and exciting moments and, you know, epic hearted, to share that with your audience in a really creative and exciting way. So myths also serve the function of an outlet of creativity for people around the world. And where do we get the sort of functionalist approach to myth making? We get it from an anthropologist named Bronislaw Malinowski, very obviously a Polish name. And he lived on the Trobriand Islands for quite some time. Those are out in the Pacific, and studied the indigenous people there. He studied their myths and their stories, and he really wanted to understand the connections between magic, science, and religion. You guys actually read part of his book, one of his essays about magic and science and religion, and I'm going to do a whole separate lecture on that as well, so make sure you click on that one too. But one of the unique things that Malinowski sort of added to our understanding of myth that I really dig is he's like, look, people who believe in myth, like, believe in it. They just don't think these are like interesting, fun stories and then like let them go. Like, these are the underlying man, like these are the underlying foundations of a society. Like these are real to people. Like people who believe in the myth of the flood or the myth of Valkyries or the myth of this or that. Like it's real to them. And because of that, myths are incredibly powerful. Like before Malinowski, people kind of wrote off myths and were like, oh, that's like a cute little story that those people tell. Oh my God, that's so nice. Like, look at Hercules. Like, great. Like, let's make a cute Disney movie after it. Obviously, that happened after Malinowski, but that's not the point. But when Malinowski came along, he's like, wait a second. Like, don't treat these like these are cute little stories just to laugh at. Like, these mean things to people. These have real value. And myth is a dialogue. It's a constant dialogue between the past and the present, between previous generations' values and current generations' beliefs. Myths provide the language to really help people to understand the world. And it means a lot to people. Like, if you are an evangelical Christian who believes in various mythos that come from the Bible, like, that's truth, y'all. That's legit. You're going to live your life based on that. You're going to vote for your president based on that. You're going to go to war based on that. Like, myths are not just like cute little stories that, you know, that's nice. Like, myths are real business. They're serious. So I really like that Malinowski says, look, these myths, they matter to people. They serve real function. They provide solace. They provide order. They provide structure. This is really important. Let us take these myths seriously. And that is what we're going to do this semester, guys. Like, we're going to take myths seriously. Like, we're going to talk about witches, because every time that Donald Trump talks about witch hunts, like, witch hunts matter in real politics today. We're going to talk about vampires. We're going to talk about werewolves and the mythologies, because these actually shape our lived experiences. Like, vampires might not be real, but the myths about them, those myths point to some really real ideas that we want to take seriously. So that's what we're going to do this semester. Thank you for listening to me give sort of a breakdown of the different theories. These are the main theories that we are going to be using this semester. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for listening, guys.